When you look at the current trade and economic relationships between Europe and Africa, that relationship has been colored by the colonial relationships, because, as you know, Europe had colonies in Africa, in Caribbean, and in the Pacific, and you find that colonial legacy still colors the trade and economic relationship, even today, between Europe and Africa. When you look at that relationship, it's still a symmetry, as it's between unequal partners. The Lomé Conventions, which started in 1975 and ended in 2000, and which were succeeded by the Cotonou Partnership Agreement and then also the Economic Partnership Agreement. When you look at those frameworks, you can see a relationship which is still determined or colored by the colonial legacy. Although when you look at the framework, it talks about principles of equality, of partners, ownership, participation, dialogue, but but what you see is again a relationship between a region which was a colony and another region which was the colonial masters. You know, so even when you look at the outcomes of those frameworks, for example, access to EU markets under EBA, everything but arms, these are things which were not negotiated, you know. And also you find that Europe wanted a continuation of a relationship that benefits its economy. For example, right from colonial times, Europe wanted raw materials for their industries. So during colonial times, raw materials like cotton used to go to Europe. After independence, under EBA, Europe tells us bring everything but arms, but not value-added products because of tariff escalation. Because if you add value, the tariffs go up. So you find that the relationship has been mainly at the benefit of Europe. I'm not saying that Africa hasn't benefited. Africa has been able to benefit, but it hasn't been able to structurally transform its economies. Structural transformation means that they can be able to change that relationship which was there, where Africa was an exporter of raw materials. Even up to today, Africa remains an exporter of raw materials, importer of finished products because of such relationships. Under the economic partnership agreements, which have stalled for some time now, Europe again wanted raw materials because they have the raw materials initiative, where they want to continue exporting raw materials from Africa. In fact, one of the issues in the EPA was that EU didn't want us to put export taxes on raw materials. Export taxes is where you tax the export of raw materials and you remove taxes on value-added products. So you find that the trade relationship between Europe and Africa has been really asymmetrical, unequal. You know, these are unequal partnerships, and the result hasn't really been good for the structural transformation of Africa. In order to decolonize this trade relationship, I think for me the ball is in African hands to be able to negotiate based on the realities on the ground, and also based on the aspiration of the African peoples. You know, we have, for example, their Agenda 2063 as Africa, the Africa we want. We should be able to translate that into the negotiations we have either with Europe or with the US or with China. For example, the African Union is very, very determined to structurally transform Africa. But that's on paper, you know. We need to move those aspirations from paper to action. You know, when we are negotiating in the WTO, when we are negotiating with China, when we are negotiating with the US. And I also think we need to speak with one voice. For example, like now in the WTO, you find Europe, Africa is divided, you know, some countries, some regions are speaking another voice, another region is talking about other issues. So we need to speak as one voice, make sure that the target is the structural transformation of Africa. The target is to be able to get the African peoples out of poverty, be able to provide decent jobs, to enable Africans also to live in dignity.